Michael Batnick did a post on dollar cost averaging last week that was one of the best versions of telling that story that I've ever seen. And I want to ask him about how he came up with these charts that he did and what he learned in the process. Stick around, we'll see what's going on. All right, so first of all, Michael, when I tweeted your post last, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, I think it went like completely crazy. Like I think there were 1,000 likes on the tweet. Did your traffic on this one really go nuts, or?
It did.
It did, right? Like people really are fascinated by the concept of compound interest, but I think they really wanted to see what the chart that I posted meant and how you arrived at coming up with it.
I think because this is relevant to everybody. Like you don't need to be a rocket scientist to be involved in this. This is like how everybody.
What is relevant to everyone? Dollar cost averaging as a strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's what everyone's doing with a 401k.
Right.
So you assume most people who are participating in the market are participating through a 401k. That's like the standard across almost everyone.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what made you want to show the chart this way? Where'd you get the idea from?
I don't have a great answer. I don't know.
What, you just one day said, let me show what it looks like reversing market performance and how much more shares of...
Yeah, well, I think I was inspired to write about this. I was reading The Wealthy Barber.
Okay.
And I think this is like such a simple concept that I don't think I've ever written about it. I probably just overlooked it. So I was just looking into it and playing around with Excel, and voila. Okay,
so the chart, and we're showing it here, that I'm referring to is SPY, which is the S&P 500 ETF, and just showing how using the same dollar amount each month to buy into it, as the index price falls, you're buying more shares in the S&P for the same money. And I don't think a lot of people are shown it that way. But obviously, it's obvious to people who are market professionals. But I think to most people, they feel like they're losing money instead of feeling like, ooh, I'm buying more of the index with the same money.
Well, because you have to think out of both sides of your brain. On the short term, you're losing money, but it's in your long term interest. So when my friends, my one friend in particular, texts me when the market is getting killed, I'm always saying to him, this is good for you. You should hope that this goes a lot lower.
Yeah, you're not using the money in your 30s.
So it's a systematic way to buy more when stocks are falling, as opposed to just like running out of the market.
Right. Why do you think people have so much trouble with this concept? Like people in their 30s and 40s are like, I'm a little concerned about the market, and most of the money that they're putting in is in like a deferred tax vehicle that they can't even touch till they're 65. Like, why is it so hard for people to understand that that's the best thing possible?
Because you don't think about yourself tomorrow. You think about yourself today. Remember Seinfeld did a bit on like tomorrow guy versus tonight guy?
Right. Oh, you make plans tonight. Yeah. Sounds great. Tomorrow guy has to actually go.
Yeah. So you don't think about, you just think about yourself today. So the caveat to this was that it was not saying that like dollar cost averaging is alpha or anything like that, because of course this is dependent on the paths.
Right.
And if you reverse the path of returns, it would have done worse in the market. And the ultimate trump card for people that think like trying to not get alpha is stupid or something is now show Japan.
Yeah. All right. So let me address this, and then I want to hear what you have to say. So anytime you post any kind of long-term compound interest chart of the stock market, U.S. stock market, anytime you say, see, it was a great strategy to just buy and hold, or dollar cost average and keep buying, anytime you suggest that, there's always 3 or 4 people that come out and say, yeah, but what about Japan? Like, wouldn't you have lost money if you did that with the Nikkei? And they're talking about the all-time high in the price of the Japanese stock market, which is 1989. Right. And it still hasn't recovered that level in dollar terms or in real terms or both. So people always say, well, if you just bought and hold Japan, it's 30 years later and you still lost money. What's your answer to that knee jerk that seems to happen all the time?
I have a few responses. I actually did a post on this.
I remember it.
So I think that those people are learning the wrong lesson. Like, first and foremost, yes, that is what risk is. It is entirely possible that the S&P 500 does not have any positive returns, real returns.
So you don't know that
over the next 20, 30 years. Grow up. That's risk. This is what it is.
That's the risk you're taking.
So does now show Japan mean mean that you should trade harder? Like, I am talking to an audience of regular investors. They are not fit for alpha. They are not concerned about it. It does not compute. It does not matter.
Right.
So the real lesson about Now Show Japan,
they're like living their lives and building their careers. They're not sitting in front of a fucking screen trying to outsmart every other investor in the world.
Right. So the real lesson for Japan is, yes, you should be wary of people that are over optimistic about buy and hold, that pound the table about real returns. I agree, but you should diversify.
Yeah, why would you just own Japan?
Why would you just own Japan?
What idiot did that?
Why would you
America?
just own the U.S.? Who is advocating for that?
Right.
There's something called bonds. I mean, you don't need to just be 100% U.S. stocks. I would highly recommend that you don't do that. And then the other thing is, like, there are ways to mitigate like tremendous tail risk in stocks. So I wrote about using something as simple as like a moving average.
Right.
So anyway, Now Show Japan is always people with an axe to grind. However, let's show Japan.
Right.
So the Nikkei did 4.8% a year since 1971, and I'm using the Nikkei priced in yen. This is not total return, just the index. Did 4.8% a year. If you were dollar cost averaging into that, you only got 1.5% a year.
Because you bought during the top, and what we still haven't recovered from.
So from 1971 through 2010, you were underwater. It's horrendous. But what's the alternative? So
and it's like one of the largest stock markets.
Should you not invest because Japan had one of the biggest bubbles of all time and never recovered?
No, but right. So the people that say Now Show Japan, usually they're day traders, or they're people selling a service that times markets, or they're like macro experts that are like, it was obvious that Japan was unsustainable and I would have sold it.
Yeah, don't invest because bubbles happen.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the good things about dollar cost averaging in Japan, if I can find any sort of silver lining, and it's tough to do so, is that let's just say that you bought and held in 1971, or you bought and held whatever. Nobody did that, but let's just say that you did. You're 50% underwater.
Okay.
You're from your all-time highs. You're in 50% drawdown. If you kept putting money in every single month, you're right at your all-time highs in terms of dollar value.
Right.
So, or even in yen.
So it wasn't great.
It was really bad.
It's not the end of the world.
It was really bad. But again, you're saving for retirement. Like, you have to believe that things are going to get better. Otherwise, just buy tuna cans and bullets.
We had this conversation with somebody live, you, me, and Chris, sitting at a dinner table, and like the questions were like not bad questions, but they were so exasperating that at a certain point I just said, let me ask you something. Do you believe that risk and reward are at all related, and that all of these risks like add up to the ability to potentially make money? Or do you think that there's just no rhyme or reason and it's all risk and there is no upside? And the person is just like, no, I don't know. So like I almost feel like at a certain point you just can't even have a conversation with someone that doesn't think it's going to work out.
Yeah, so I think like we believe that people who take risk are rewarded. I definitely believe that.
Well,
even if
the evidence concludes that.
I don't believe that they're rewarded every day or even every decade or even every several decades. That shit happens.
That's what the risk is.
That's the risk.
All right, so look, dollar cost averaging is not perfect. Dollar cost averaging will not save you from a situation like the bubble in the Nikkei. And dollar cost averaging doesn't have an answer to every potential bad thing that can happen with investing. However, all things being equal, it's probably easier to do than lump sum market timing for obvious reasons.
That's also, by the way, different conversations.
Totally different. And if it's the only way that people can get money invested because they're using a 401k and it's being deducted from their paycheck, it is perfectly fine, Japan notwithstanding. Like,
now Japan. Oh, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to invest. I'm just going to spend every dollar I have because Japan.
Listen, if you're talking about Japan in my comment section, I'm probably going to delete the comment. But other than that, we definitely want to know what you think. And thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.